The phone screen glowing in the dark might be the thing that ends my marriage. It sits on the coffee table between us, face up, showing a message I was never supposed to see. Good night, beautiful. Dream of me. Tom is asleep on the couch, his chest rising and falling in that deep rhythm I used to find comforting. The apartment is quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic 12 floors below. His phone buzzed twice, lighting up the room, and now I'm standing here with it in my hands, scrolling through months of saved messages with someone named Mia. Each text signed off with a shooting star emoji. If you only saw this scene, you would say it is simple. He cheated on me. The evidence is right here, stamped with dates and times, filled with inside jokes and nightly rituals that used to belong to us. You are already here hearing my side, so subscribe and stay to hear his too, because when I confront him in about 6 hours, he will tell you a completely different story about what those messages really mean. But for you to understand how I ended up here, staring at proof I never wanted to find, I need to go back a little. Tom and I met in college during a philosophy seminar about the ethics of truth. I remember he sat 2 rows ahead of me, and when the professor asked if honesty was always moral, Tom raised his hand and said that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is protect someone from a trut that would destroy them. I thought it was profound. Now I wonder if he was already practicing for this moment. We started dating 3 weeks later. Our first real date was at this tiny Italian place near campus, where the owner kept forgetting our order, but the wine was cheap and good. Tom told me about growing up in Ohio with 3 brothers, how he always felt like he had to fight for attention. I told him about my mother leaving when I was 9, how I learned early that people you love can just disappear. He held my hand across the table and promised he would never be that person. I believed him. After graduation, we moved to the city together. Tom got a job at a marketing firm, and I worked my way up in event planning. We lived in a studio apartment where we could barely fit a couch, but we did not care. On Saturday mornings, we would walk to the farmer's market and buy fresh bread and flowers we could not really afford. Tom would read his advertising pitches out loud while I pretended to understand what brand synergy meant. We got married 4 years after we met, in a small ceremony at his parents' house in Cleveland. It rained the entire day, and my dress got muddy at the hem, but Tom said it made me look like I had walked through a fairy tale to get to him. We honeymooned in Montreal, where we got lost in the old city and ended up eating crepes in the rain. He kissed me under a street lamp and said he wanted to remember that exact moment forever because it was the happiest he had ever been. The years that followed were good. We bought a 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood that was just starting to gentrify. Tom got promoted twice. I started my own event planning business with a college friend. We talked about having kids, but kept pushing it back, saying we wanted to enjoy being young and free a little longer. We went to wine tastings and rooftop bars. We hosted dinner parties where everyone said we were the couple they wanted to be. Looking back now, I can see the moment things started to shift. It was subtle at first, like a door closing so slowly you do not hear the click until it is already shut. The first time I noticed something was off, Tom had just gotten back from a conference in Boston. He was different, lighter somehow, like he had left some weight behind and picked up something new. He smiled more at his phone than at me. When I asked how the conference went, he gave me the highlights in that detached way people use when they are summarizing a movie they did not really pay attention to. Then there was the phone. Tom had always been casual about his phone, leaving it on the counter while he showered, letting me use it to look something up if mine was dead. But after Boston, it became an extension of his body. He took it to the bathroom. He angled it away from me when he typed. If it buzzed during dinner, he would glance at it and then flip it face down with this little smile I did not recognize. When I asked who kept texting him, he said it was just work stuff. A new colleague named Mia was working on a big campaign with him, and they were messaging about deadlines and creative direction. He said her name so casually, like it was nothing, but something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. I told myself I was being paranoid. Tom had never given me a reason not to trust him. But then small things started adding up. He began working late more often. He bought new cologne, something sharp and expensive that he only wore on days when he said he had important meetings. He started going to the gym, which he had not done consistently in years. When I complimented him on losing weight, he shrugged and said he just felt like taking better care of himself. One night, I tried to talk to him about how distant he seemed. We were in bed and he was on his phone, scrolling through something with that same little smile. I asked if everything was okay between us. He put his phone down, looked at me with this patient expression, and said, "Rachel, you are overthinking things. I am just stressed with work. You see problems where there are none." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to be the cool, trusting wife who did not turn into a paranoid mess over a few missed calls and late nights. But that phrase, "you see problems where there are none," stayed with me. It made me feel like I was going crazy, like my instincts were broken. A few weeks later, I found a receipt in his jacket pocket. It was from a restaurant downtown, a place we had talked about going to but never had. The bill was for 2 people, 2 glasses of wine, an appetizer, 2 entrees, dessert. The total was $173.42. When I asked him about it, he said he had taken a client out for lunch. When I pointed out that the timestamp said 9:30 at night, he paused, then said it was actually a colleague, and they had gone over campaign ideas after work. He was annoyed that I was checking his pockets, said it felt like I did not trust him. Back then, I thought that word overreacting was just annoying. I did not know it would become the weapon he used every single time I got close to the truth. I became someone I did not recognize. Every time Tom left the room, I found myself drawn to his phone, his laptop, his jacket pockets. I checked our credit card statements for charges I did not recognize. I memorized his schedule and cross-referenced it with the location history on our shared phone plan. I became a detective in my own home, and I hated myself for it. The worst part was how consuming it became. I would lie awake at night, listening to Tom breathe beside me, wondering if he was dreaming about her. I lost my appetite. My business partner noticed I was distracted during client meetings. I snapped at my best friend when she suggested I was being paranoid. I stopped going to yoga. I stopped calling my dad. My whole world narrowed down to this single question: was my husband cheating on me? I found small clues but nothing definitive. A charge for flowers from a shop near his office that never showed up at our apartment. A hotel receipt from a business trip to Chicago that listed to keycards. When I asked about that one, he said they always give him to in case he loses one. His explanations were always just reasonable enough that I could not argue without sounding crazy. I started testing him. I would mention Mia casually, just to see how he reacted. He always kept his face neutral, would say something bland like, "Oh yeah, she is doing well on the campaign." Once, I asked if I could meet her at the next company happy hour. Tom said that would be great, but then the happy hour got cancelled last minute. Or so he said. One Friday afternoon, I did something I am not proud of. I told Tom I had a client emergency and would be working late. Then I waited outside his office building. I watched him walk out at 6:15, alone, briefcase in hand. He got coffee at the Starbucks on the corner, sat there for 20 minutes scrolling through his phone, then walked to the subway and went home. I felt ridiculous. I felt relieved. I felt sick with shame that I had followed my own husband like he was a suspect. But then there were nights when everything felt wrong again. He would laugh at something on his phone and then close it quickly when I walked in. He started showering as soon as he got home from work, before even saying hello properly. When we had sex, which was becoming less and less frequent, he seemed distracted, like he was performing a duty rather than connecting with me. I checked his phone one night when he was asleep. I knew his passcode because it was our anniversary month and day. But when I tried to open it, the code did not work. He had changed it. When I asked him about it the next morning, he said his company had new security protocols and he had to use a randomly generated code. He offered to write it down for me, but something about the offer felt like a test, like he was daring me to admit I did not trust him. My friend Sarah told me I needed to either confront him directly or let it go, that this middle ground was destroying me. She was right. I was not sleeping. I was not eating. I was not the person I used to be. But I could not let it go, and I could not confront him without proof, because what if I was wrong? What if I accused him of cheating and it turned out he really was just stressed about work? I would be the villain in our story, the paranoid wife who destroyed a good marriage with her insecurity. I thought the worst thing that could happen was discovering nothing. I was wrong. The worst was still waiting in a glowing screen I was about to pick up off the coffee table. The night one found the messages started like any other Wednesday. Tom came home at 7:30 with Thai takeout. He kissed me on the forehead, the kind of kiss you give someone out of habit rather than desire. We ate dinner mostly in silence, except for me asking about his day and him giving one-word answers between bites of pad thai. After dinner, he said he was exhausted and was going to watch something mindless on the couch. I told him I had some work emails to catch up on and went to our bedroom. An hour later, I came out to get water, and he was asleep on the couch, his head tilted back, his mouth slightly open. And there, on the coffee table beside him, was his phone, screen facing up, unlocked. My heart started racing. I stood there for what felt like several minutes, just staring at that glowing rectangle. This was the moment I had been both dreading and hoping for. If I looked and found nothing, I could finally let this paranoia go. If I looked and found something, everything would change. I picked up the phone. The screen was open to his messages. And right there at the top was a name I recognized, Mia, with a shooting star emoji next to it. The preview of her last message read, "Goodnight, beautiful. Dream of me." My hands were shaking as I opened the conversation. The messages went back months, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. I scrolled up, reading through the history of whatever this was. Good morning texts that started innocent and became flirtatious. Inside jokes about their boss, about clients, about the coffee machine in the break room. Photos of her lunch, of her outfit, of the view from her apartment window. Him sending photos back. Compliments about her smile, her laugh, the way she thinks. Her telling him about her day, her fears, her dreams. Him doing the same. Late night conversations that went past midnight. Heart emojis. Winky faces, messages that said I am thinking about you and I wish you were here and you make everything better. They had nicknames for each other. He called her Sunshine. She called him Tea. They had rituals. Every morning at 8 he sent her a coffee emoji. Every night at 11 she sent him a moon. They talked about movies they wanted to see together. Books they were reading. Songs that reminded them of each other. There were voice messages. I could not bring myself to listen to them, just seeing that they existed was enough. I kept scrolling, looking for something more concrete, some confession of physical cheating. But I did not find it. What I found was worse in a way. What I found was intimacy. The kind of intimacy Tom and I used to have. The kind where you share your whole self with someone and they share themselves back. He was having an emotional affair, and he had been having it for at least 6 months. My chest felt tight. I could not breathe properly. Tom was still asleep on the couch, completely oblivious. I could have woken him up right then, could have shoved the phone in his face and demanded answers. But I did not. Instead, I took photos of the messages with my own phone. Dozens of them. I wanted evidence, because I knew that when I confronted him, he would try to make me feel like I was overreacting. He would try to rewrite the story. And I needed to be able to prove what I had seen. I put his phone back on the coffee table, exactly where it had been. Then I went to our bedroom, climbed into bed fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling until sunrise. The next morning, Tom woke up and acted like everything was normal. He made coffee. He asked if I wanted toast. He kissed me goodbye before leaving for work, and I let him, even though his lips felt like they belonged to a stranger. I spent the entire day deciding what to do. Part of me wanted to pack a bag and leave, just disappear and let him figure out why. Part of me wanted to call Mia, to hear her voice, to understand who this person was that had replaced me. But mostly, I wanted answers. I wanted to hear Tom explain in his own words how he could do this to me. To us. That night, I waited for him to come home. When he walked through the door at 8, I was sitting on the couch with his phone messages pulled up on my own phone, ready to show him everything I had found. He saw my face and knew immediately that something was wrong. Rachel. What happened? I held up my phone, showing him the screenshots. Who's Mia? His face went pale, then red. Then carefully blank. Rachel, I can explain. Then explain. Explain why you have been texting another woman goodnight every single night for the past 6 months. Explain the heart emojis and the nicknames and the photos. Explain why you are sharing your entire life with someone who is not me. He sat down on the chair across from me, not next to me on the couch where he usually sat. It is not what you think. Then what is it? It is just texting. We are friends. We worked together, and we became close. But it is not like I slept with her or anything. You are making this into something it is not. You are telling her you wish she was there with you. You are telling her she makes everything better. You are calling her beautiful. That is not just friendship, Tom. That is a relationship. It is not a relationship. She is just someone I talk to. You have been so distant lately, so focused on your work and your own stuff. I needed someone to talk to, so you found someone else? You decided our marriage problems were best solved by starting an emotional affair? It is not an affair. Nothing physical happened. We just text. You are completely overreacting. There it was. That word again. Overreacting. As if the evidence on my phone was not real, as if the intimacy he had built with another woman was somehow my fault for noticing it. You changed your passcode, I said quietly. You started taking your phone everywhere. You are distant and distracted, and when I tried to talk to you about it, you told me I was seeing problems that were not there. But they were there, Tom. This was there. You were lying to me every single day. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I used to find endearing. Now it just looked like a performance. I did not tell you because I knew you would react exactly like this. It is harmless. It does not mean anything. If it does not mean anything, why did you hide it? Why did you lie? He did not have an answer for that. Or maybe he did, but he knew it would make things worse. That is my side. With everything I lived and everything I found, this is cheating. It is a betrayal of everything we promised each other. It is choosing someone else over me, even if he never touched her. But he does not tell this story in the same way.
I am sitting on the edge of our bed at 3 in the morning, holding my phone, staring at the screenshots Rachel sent to my email before she went to stay at her friend Sarah's place. Every message I sent to Mia is right there, frozen in time, looking exactly like what Rachel says it is, proof that I destroyed our marriage. But if you only listen to her, I am the perfect villain, the husband who secretly built a whole relationship with another woman while pretending everything was fine at home, the man who lied and hid and gaslit his wife until she found the evidence herself. And maybe that is true. Maybe that is exactly what I am. Or maybe the truth is more complicated than a collection of text messages can show. When Rachel confronted me tonight, when she held up her phone with those screenshots, my first thought was not guilt. It was anger. Anger that she had gone through my phone. Anger that she had taken photos like she was building a case against me. Anger that she was acting like I had committed this unforgivable crime when all I did was talk to someone who actually wanted to hear what I had to say. I know how that sounds. I know it makes me sound like exactly the kind of man who blames his wife for his own choices. But the thing is, those messages did not start in a vacuum. They started in a marriage that was already falling apart, where I felt invisible and unimportant and completely alone. Rachel sees Mia as the problem. But from where I am sitting, Mia was the symptom. The real problem started years before I ever sent that first text. If you only listen to her, I am the perfect villain. Let me tell you how it started from my side. I fell in love with Rachel in a philosophy seminar during our junior year of college. She was the smartest person in the room, but she never made you feel stupid for disagreeing with her. When the professor asked if honesty was always moral, I said that sometimes protecting someone from the truth was the kinder choice. Rachel caught up with me after class and said that was an interesting way to justify cowardice. She smiled when she said it, and I was completely gone. Our first date was at this Italian restaurant near campus where the owner kept mixing up our orders. Rachel laughed every time he brought us the wrong thing, said it was an adventure. I told her about growing up with 3 brothers, always having to fight to be heard. She told me about her mom leaving when she was a kid, how she learned early not to rely on anyone too much. I promised her I would never leave. I meant it. After graduation, we moved to the city together. I started working at a marketing firm, putting in 70-hour weeks to prove I deserved to be there. Rachel was building her event planning business. We were both hustling, both exhausted, but we had each other. On Sundays, we would stay in bed until noon, order Chinese food, and watch old movies. Those were good years. Simple years. We got married for years after we met. The wedding was at my parents' house in Oyo, and it rained the entire day. But Rachel looked so beautiful standing there with mud on her dress that I actually teared up during the vows. We honeymooned in Montreal and got lost in the old city. I remember kissing her under a street lamp and thinking that this was it. This was the peak of human happiness, and I had somehow earned it. The first few years of marriage were exactly what I thought they would be. We bought an apartment. We hosted dinner parties. We talked about having kids someday when we were ready. Rachel's business took off, and I got promoted to senior account manager. We were the couple everyone envied, the ones who had figured it out. But somewhere around year 6 or 7, things started to shift. Rachel became more focused on work, more stressed, more distant. Our conversations became logistical. Did you pay the electric bill? What time is the dinner reservation? Can you pick up milk on your way home? We stopped having real conversations, the kind where you share what you are actually thinking and feeling. I tried to bring it up a few times. I would ask if she was happy. If we wed a kid, she would always say yes. Everything was fine. She was just tired from work. But it did not feel fine. It felt like we were roommates who occasionally had sex out of obligation rather than desire. I started working later, partly because I had more responsibility at the firm, but partly because coming home to that quiet, polite distance was depressing. At work, I mattered. People listened when I had ideas. I got recognition when I did good work. At home, I felt like furniture, functional, but not particularly noticed or appreciated. I did not wake up one morning wanting someone else. I only realized how empty I was when a different person started to pay attention. Mia Sullivan joined our team in March of 2024. She was hired as a junior creative strategist for a campaign we were pitching to a major airline client. In our first meeting, she presented an idea that was bold and risky. And when our creative director shot it down, she did not back down. She argued for it, made air case, and eventually won him over. I remember thinking that she had the kind of confidence I used to have before this job turned me into someone who played it safe. We started working closely on the airline campaign. Late nights at the office, emails back and forth about taglines and visual concepts. She was funny and sharp and genuinely interested in the work. When I pitched an idea, she would build on it instead of just nodding politely. She made me feel like I was good at my job again, like I had something valuable to contribute. The first personal conversation we had was after a particularly brutal meeting where the client tore apart 2 months of our work. Everyone else left the conference room defeated, but Mia stayed behind. She said, "That was brutal, but we will fix it. You have good instincts. Trust them." It was such a small thing, but it meant something to me. Rachel had not said anything like that to me in years. We started getting coffee before work, then lunch a few times a week. The conversations shifted from work to life. She told me about a bad breakup she was recovering from, how her ex had made her feel like she was never enough. I told her about feeling invisible in my own marriage, how I could not remember the last time Rachel had asked me a real question about my day. One knew I was crossing a line, not a physical one yet, but an emotional one. I was sharing things with Mia that I should have been sharing with my wife, but it felt good to be heard, to be seen, to matter to someone again. The texting started after a work trip to Boston for a conference. We were both there, and the conference was boring, so we skipped the afternoon sessions and walked around the city instead. We got coffee at this place near the harbor and talked for 3 hours about our families, our fears, our dreams, the versions of ourselves we thought we would become when we were younger. When we got back to the hotel, she hugged me goodbye, and it lasted a beat too long. I felt something shift. That night, lying in my hotel bed, I texted her, "Thanks for today, I needed that." She texted back, "Me too, you are easy to talk to." And from there, it became a daily thing. Good morning texts. How is your day going? Funny observations about coworkers, photos of coffee cups and sunsets and random street art. Nothing explicitly romantic at first, but the intimacy was there. The attention was there. The feeling that someone actually cared what I was thinking. Rachel noticed something was different when I got back from Boston. She asked if the conference went well, and I gave her the standard summary. But I could tell she sensed something had changed. She started watching me more carefully, asking more questions. I started hiding my phone, changing my I told myself I was not doing anything wrong because nothing physical had happened. But I knew that was a lie. I knew exactly what I was doing. The messages with Mia became more frequent, more personnel, more flirtatious. She started calling me T. I started calling her Sunshine because she texted me every morning like clockwork, and it felt like starting the day with something bright. We had inside jokes. We had rituals. We had a whole private world that existed only in text messages and the space between what we were saying and what we meant. In June, we had another work trip, this time to Chicago, for a client presentation. The night after the presentation, the whole team went out for drinks to celebrate landing the account. Everyone else left around 11, but Mia and I stayed. We moved to a quieter bar down the street. We drank too much. We talked about everything and nothing, and when we walked back to the hotel, she took my hand. I should have pulled away. I should have said this was a bad idea, that I was married, that we needed to keep things professional. But I did not. I held her hand back, and when we got to the elevator in the hotel lobby, sex said me. It was not a long kiss, maybe 5 seconds, but it was enough to cross the line from emotional affair to something more. When the elevator doors opened, we got in, and I pressed the button for her floor without discussing it. We went to her room, and I made a choice that I knew would change everything. We slept together that night, and the morning after, lying there next to her, I felt two things at once. The most alive I had felt in years, and the most disgusted with myself I had ever been. I told her it could not happen again, that I had made a mistake, that I was married, that this was wrong. She said she understood, but neither of us really meant it. Because 2 weeks later, I was back in her apartment, and then again the week after that. It became a pattern. We would meet up. We would cross every line we said we would not cross, and then I would go home to Rachel and pretend everything was normal. I told myself it would never happen again. But the truth is, once you open that door, you cannot pretend the house is still the same. The messages Rachel found on my phone were real. Every single one of them. The good morning texts, the late night conversations, the heart emojis, the nicknames, the intimacy. It was all there, exactly as she saw it. I am not going to lie about that now. But here is what those messages do not show. They do not show the months before Mia, when I tried to talk to Rachel about how disconnected we had become. They do not show the nights I stayed awake, wondering if my wife even liked me anymore, or if I was just the person who paid half the mortgage and showed up at family dinners. They do not show the slow, painful death of a marriage that was already over in every way, except legally. Rachel thinks the affair started in March, when Mia joined the team, but from my perspective, the marriage ended long before that. It ended in all the moments when Rachel looked through me instead of at me. It ended when sex became a quarterly obligation instead of a connection. It ended when I realized I could disappear for 3 days, and the only thing she would notice was if I forgot to transfer money for the electric bill. I am not saying that justifies what I did. I am saying it explains it. There is a difference. The receipt Rachel found from the restaurant downtown, that was from the second time Mia and I had dinner alone, outside of work. I paid cash for most of our other dinners specifically so there would not be a trail. But that night, I forgot. The charge showed up on our joint credit card, and I panicked. When Rachel asked about it, I said it was a work dinner, which was technically true, since Mia and I did talk about work that night. For maybe 10 minutes before we talked about everything else, the hotel receipt from Chicago with 2 keycards. That was the trip where everything changed. The hotel automatically issued 2 keys per room. But Rachel was right to be suspicious. I did use the second key. I gave it to Mia so she could come to my room after the team dinner. When Rachel asked about it weeks later, I told her the 2 keycard thing was standard hotel policy. Not a lie, but definitely not the truth either. The phone calls she noticed, some of them were Mia, but not all of them. Some really were work calls, client calls, calls with my brother about our dad's health. But I let Rachel think they were all suspicious because it was easier than explaining which ones were innocent and which ones were not. The changed passcode on my phone happened the morning after Rachel almost saw a text from Mia pop up while we were having breakfast. To text side missing you already because Mia and I had met up the night before when I told Rachel I was working late. I changed the code that day and told Rachel it was a new company's security policy. She looked like she wanted to challenge me on that, but she did not. Part of me wishes she had. Part of me wishes she had forced me to confess months earlier, before things got so complicated. Here is the thing about affairs. They are easy to judge from the outside. The cheater is the villain. The betrayed spouse is the victim. The story is simple, but when you are inside it, nothing is simple. You are not a villain in your own story. You are just a person who felt alone and found someone who made you feel less alone. And yes, you made terrible choices. And yes, you hurt someone who did not deserve it. But you are also hurting. You are also lost. You are also wondering how your life became something you do not recognize. Did I cheat on Rachel? Yes. Emotionally, definitely. Physically, also, yes. Though I never told her that part, and I do not think she has figured it out yet. The text messages she found were damning enough. If she knew about Chicago, about the other nights, about the full extent of what Mia and I became to each other, I do not think she would be at Sarah's apartment right now, trying to decide if the marriage is worth saving. She would be gone, completely. But did I cheat because I am a terrible person who wanted to destroy my marriage? No. I cheated because my marriage was already destroyed, and I did not have the courage to admit it. I cheated because staying in a relationship where you feel invisible is its own kind of torture, and Mia offered me an escape. I cheated because it was easier than doing the hard work of either fixing my marriage or ending it cleanly. Rachel thinks this is about Mia. She thinks if Mia had not existed, we would be fine. But that is not true. If it had not been Mia, it would have been someone else eventually, or I would have just stayed in the marriage, getting quieter and smaller and more resentful until I was completely hollowed out. The truth that Rachel does not want to hear is that we were both responsible for the marriage falling apart. She was so focused on her work, her friends, her own life, that she stopped seeing me as a partner and started seeing me as a fixture. And instead of fighting for the marriage, instead of insisting we go to therapy or have the hard conversations, I took the coward's way out. I found someone else to make me feel whole. She calls it cheating. I call it the consequence of a marriage that was already broken. The five.
8 months after the confrontation, Rachel and Tom are no longer living in the same apartment. Rachel moved into a one-bedroom in a neighborhood she used to think was too far from the city center, but now she appreciates the quiet. She repainted the walls a soft gray and bought new furniture that does not carry any memories. She still runs her event planning business, and if anything, she has thrown herself into work with even more intensity. Her business partner says she seems lighter somehow despite everything, or maybe because of everything. She goes to therapy every Tuesday at 6 in the evening. Her therapist asks her questions about trust, about what she knew and what she chose not to see. Rachel does not have clean answers. Some weeks she feels like the victim of a cruel betrayal. Other weeks she wonders if she let the marriage die long before Tom ever texted another woman. She has not deleted the screenshots from her phone. She looks at them sometimes late at night, reading through the messages again, trying to understand what Tom found with Mia that he could not find with her. The answer is probably simpler than she wants it to be. Tom is living in a studio apartment downtown, closer to his office. He still works at the same marketing firm, though Mia left the company 3 months after everything fell apart. They still text occasionally, but it is different now. The thrill is gone, replaced by something sadder and more complicated. He wonders sometimes if what he felt for her was ever real, or if she was just the escape hatch from a life that was suffocating him. He sees a therapist too, though he does not talk about it with anyone. His therapist asks him why he never told Rachel he was unhappy before seeking intimacy elsewhere. Tom says he did not know how, or maybe he did not want to, or maybe he was hoping someone else would fix the problem so he did not have to. He still wears his wedding ring sometimes just out of habit, then realizes it halfway through the day and takes it off. He does not know if he wants Rachel back or if he just misses the idea of not being the villain. They have spoken 3 times since Rachel moved out. Once through lawyers about dividing assets, once at a coffee shop where they tried to have a civil conversation about what went wrong, and both left feeling worse than when they arrived. And once late at night when Tom called her drunk and crying, saying he was sorry, and Rachel listened without saying anything, then hung up and turned off her phone. Neither of them has filed for divorce yet. Neither of them has officially said it is over. They exist in this strange limbo where the marriage is functionally dead, but legally alive, like a patient on life support that no one has the courage to unplug. Tom's brother asked him recently if he thought the affair was worth it. Tom did not have an answer. Some days he thinks yes, because at least he felt something again, even if it was destructive. Other days he thinks no, because he traded a broken marriage for complete loneliness and the knowledge that he is capable of betraying someone he once loved. Rachel's best friend Sarah asked her if she could ever forgive Tom. Rachel said she does not know if forgiveness is even the right question. Maybe the question is whether the marriage was real enough to be worth mourning in the first place. In the end, the messages were real, the distance was real, and so were the lies. But so was the loneliness that came before them. So was the slow erosion of intimacy that neither of them fought hard enough to stop. So were the ways they both chose silence over honesty, convenience over courage. After hearing her side and his side, who do you believe is closer to the truth? Was this clear cheating, emotional infidelity that crosses every line that matters? Or the final act of a marriage that was already dead long before the proof showed up? Did Tom betray Rachel? Or did they betray each other in smaller, quieter ways until there was nothing left to save? Tell me in the comments, her side, his side, or no one is clean. If you like long, messy marriage stories where the truth does not fit in a single version, subscribe, leave a like, and share this with someone who loves hard questions about love, betrayal, and the gray areas we all pretend do not exist.